what she was doing, she has this chapter 3, where she talks about alienation, anxiety, and narcissism. And one of the things that she does, now alienation is when you are separated in a way that's like painful, and you can't get back to yourself or to what you need to be with or close to. And Dr. McIntosh can define that in a much better way. But alienation is something which is endemic, she's saying, to white culture, white society. Where does it begin? With alienation from the self. They are alienated from themselves. Why? They hate themselves. That she uses as a primary cause for white behavior, for racist behavior, is self-hatred. You got that? This is a totally different way of looking at all of that stuff. You know how they used to talk about racism before her, and we should never let it go back to where it was before her. They would talk about so-called prejudice and how you felt about people. And so all the liberals would want people to come together and they could love each other and not feel badly about each other. She takes it to a whole nother level and says it comes out of it's one of the manifestations, this alienation, the anxiety that you feel, the fear that they feel, the narcissism, unable to give back emotion and love. All of those things, she said, come from this one cause, and the cause is the genetic inadequacy and your response to that, and the genetic inferiority and your need to compensate for that. You got it? Yes. That's the power in what she was doing. And I think what I'm going to do now, because I could go on forever. And Dr. McIntosh, you didn't tell me how long I have. That's what he said, when I'm finished? Okay, we'll wait just 1 second. Yeah, let me put on the method. This one. Yes. And then I'll also use some of my notes, but this will give you something to look at. And really what it says is some aspects of the work of Dr. Frances Cress-Welsing. There are two terms that she used. She actually wanted to affect psychiatry, okay, and certainly for us to use it. So she talks about counter-racist psychiatry, and she also talks about unified field psychiatry. Is that correct? Okay, let's go. Did everybody get that? Okay.
Go back. That's good.
Anybody want to go back to just get those names? Go back for one second. Yeah. Okay, so you can take that down. Everybody in other rooms, you can hear counter-racist psychiatry. She talks about it in her book. She has chapters on it and explains what it should be doing. Unified field psychiatry. Got that? Those in other rooms? Let's go on. All right. A quote. I'm going to do a series of quotes to help, and then we can discuss them and you can ask questions. She is, remember I said before, she's looking for a unitary law. Okay? That means one law that you can use to explain both the cause and the workings of white supremacy system, racism, white supremacy. Clear? Everybody? Okay. The present confusion, you see that's part of our problem. So we can't study that, it's too confusing, we can't understand it. She's saying, yeah, we can understand it. It's largely a result of our failure to see the interconnections that exist between many seemingly isolated, disconnected behavior energy phenomena, that just means something that happens, in Western culture. For a second, I want to look at that interconnections. She talks about interconnectedness. She is advising us that we need to look for interconnectedness. She also talks about interrelationship. She doesn't have it in this quote, but she talks about that. You got to see how these things relate. What relates them is one law. You look for the thing that relates all these seemingly isolated things. She said they're not really isolated. She even has a thing, if you look on page 22. Anybody have the book with them? Anyway, look on that page. There's a diagram, and it's like a cone that comes down. And at the top of the cone, you see these things that are sparse. You know, they're all over the place. But as the cone comes down, they get closer and closer and closer till at the bottom of the cone, you end up with just a one. It's a dot, a black dot, right? And what she's showing that if you go deep enough, what do you find? You come to the core. She's always looking for the core. Is everybody with me? So what we're looking at now is her method and her approach. They won't be disconnected anymore. Why? Because we found the unitary law. Any questions? Next one. Her thesis. The global behavior patterns of racism are a survival necessity for the white collective. They are doing what they have to do in order to survive, guess what? As white. You know? Otherwise, they would just identify with everybody else and just become part of what everybody else is or something like that. They don't want to do that. Which is cool with me, by the way. Okay. They want to be white. That's what she said, identify as white. But in order to survive, they got to create this system, which is racism, white supremacy. Everybody there? Okay. This racist activity is a compensatory. You're making up for stuff. Compensatory, making up for stuff you don't have. Right, James? Mm-hmm. Okay. It's a compensatory attempt to prevent white genetic annihilation. They know that they will be annihilated genetically. Why? Because they are recessive, because they're weak. You got it? On a planet where the vast majority of people are what? Genetically dominant. Okay? We are genetically dominant to the melanin deficient whites. So there should be an L in there, y'all. I corrected it last night on something else. Has everybody got this as much as they want of it? Okay, let's go on. The awareness of self in the white global collective as a white genetic mutant. Anybody know why they would be called mutants? What? Anybody? One of the things that you need to do, we need to do, is to connect the different people that we have studied or read or been told about. Yeah. Now, in terms of this mutant thing, who would be a person that you would go to in terms of their work? Who do you think? That's it. Say it louder. Okay. Who talks about the development of white people over 20,000 years of mutation that was necessary in the Caucasus and that whole area. Is everybody with me? So yeah, they came about as a result of mutation. Okay? Mutation is like abnormal, y'all. Okay, it's moving away from normal. Okay? And it's mutation from what is normal, what is healthy. At any rate, she says, white genetic mutant population and the subsequent conscious and unconscious determination to survive as a global minority. As a global minority. When survive as that. In order to do that, what did they have to do? It became the underlying law that determined the evolution of the new global white supremacy system / culture. That's how that system comes about. That's her thesis. That's what she says. So you can explain everything that way. Next one. Now, she's talking about what she sees as the task of the discipline she's been trained in, that she is telling you needs to be reworked. Psychiatry's task is to demonstrate that the white supremacy system, now again, let me go back. Psychiatry's task, y'all, you think that's what she was taught in school when she was trained in psychiatry? I don't think so. Okay? And I don't think that we need to be thinking in terms of good students in good, white or white-black universities. I don't think that's how we need to be thinking. Why? Why shouldn't we be thinking like that? Say it again?
I said because you're duped before you started, you think that way. You
All right.
buy into the European system of hierarchy, what that educational process means.
What are we in? What are we involved in? What should we be involved in? Anybody?
Our own systems of thought.
Say it again?
Our own systems of thought.
Okay, what's our reality? See, these are words and stuff. What's our reality right now? War. When you're at war, what should you be trained to be?
A warrior.
Soldier.
And identifying.
Warrior. You know what she says about them? She says they're thinking, kill or be killed. We got problems with that. But she's saying because of this, they're like, for our survival, we got to create this monstrous system in order to live. So they know they're at war. You see what I'm saying? They're declaring war, and we don't know that war has been declared against us. Yes?
Well, if we study the European, you would know that they are warlocks, and they have been warlocks. They've had the 1,000-year war all in Europe, so there's a lot of problems with that. Number two, the environment, no vitamin D for the body. So a lot of things that makes them inferior. And if we studied their history, then we would understand them more so.
Well, that's why I spent a lot of time doing that. Thank you very much in the book Urugu. And I think also Baba Jetty, Dr. Jacob Carruthers, he's doing that. He's looking at their thought process. And Job does that as well in terms of when he talks about the Northern Cradle. He's talking about the very things that you talk about is what they came out of and then how it influenced how they think and how they relate to the environment, okay? We got to know, what is Dr. Welsing saying? She's saying we got to study our enemy and identify it as an enemy. I think we're still looking at, well, they're the good people, some of them who said some good things, and really all I need to do is kind of tweak their thing a little bit, right? And make sure they don't
Join them and work together.
Yeah, work together, but also we just don't want them to beat up on us. We don't want them to kill our children, which is very true. How do you stop somebody from killing your children? I mean, God, I hope if you're in your house and somebody coming after your children, what you gonna do?
Take them out.
Come on.
Also,
Yes. Oh, I'm so.
Also, they took the worst out of Europe, put them all on the ships, all the drunkards, all the mentally ill, the prostitutes, all thrown on the ships and toodaloo to America, the New World, we don't want you.
Okay.
So this is what we were stuck with.
Okay. Well, the other thing is, because I'm going to take you there, I'm going to take us all there, is, are we American?
No.
Is that what you want to be, however? No. You might say, oh, no, no, I'm not, but really, I'm hoping, one day. You know what she says? She says, we're not American. I say, we don't need to want to be American. And then she says, we are the victims of Americans. Now, why is she saying something so, Because she's saying we've got to know our reality, y'all. That's what her whole thing is about. What were you going to say, Haru?
I was just going to add on, as we learned in our study class, African Awareness Critical Thinking study class, you can pick any year since they've been known to exist, any year,
That's right.
and they've been at war with themselves or someone else.
That's right.
They're warlocks.
That's
Every
right.
single
They
year.
know.
That's right. They thrive on what they need war, and that's what Baba Jetty explains, is that it's a mentality in terms of conflict that they need. That's in their worldview. So does Job talks about the same thing. Okay, let's keep reading here. So the task of psychiatry is what? To demonstrate that you really can't be mentally healthy in their environment. Now, her stuff is so bold, y'all. She's defining mental health in a way that her teachers did not, they wouldn't agree with. They didn't teach her that. Where does she get it from? She gets it from being an African woman. Okay? Under the threat of white supremacy. That's where she gets it from. And that's what we have to do, is to be able to study from that perspective. So when we talk about African-centered perspective, don't just use that as words. It means that before you make a judgment about something, you're going to say it's good or bad, you need to ask yourself a question about it. And this is what the children at Ahab know to ask. Anybody know what the question is? I guess nobody here would know. Yes, Mama Isato.
Is it good for African people?
Is it good for African people? That's the critical question to ask of anything. Anything. Before you do it or before you are able to say it's good or bad. That doesn't mean you won't do some things that are not necessarily good. But you'll know, if I'm going to ask that question, this thing ain't good for my people. Okay? She is asking us to think critically in that way. And then we're going to get in remind me, because I want to get to where she talks about how we think. Okay, that's very important, and I won't remember, so you got to remind me. Okay, so it's unable to produce an environment in which mental health can evolve and flourish. You cannot be mentally healthy in that system according to their rules, functioning with their rules. Therefore, the power system needs to be abandoned. She says it's got to be abandoned. So psychiatry really would say to you, if it's her kind of psychiatry, which is counter-racist psychiatry, do away with the white Western supremacy system. Do away with it. Check that out. She's saying psychiatry will tell you to do that if you do it the right way. Let's go with the next one. She is going to offer another definition of mental health. Y'all? And that's what we got to do. We got to have our own definitions. The brother elder over there was talking about. Once you define it, then you control it. And we've been working with their definitions. And we've been working with their definitions to a large degree, because those of us who go through the academy, we think we're learning this is the right way. This is the smartest way. So then we come out and then we teach. And we teaching the children and we teaching the adults and we teaching our people. But what are we teaching? We're teaching the definitions that we were taught in the white supremacy system. So what I haven't said yet is what she does practically with all of this. And practically speaking, she was a healer. And she was healing every one of our people that she could possibly get near. And you know what she was healing them to do? We tend to think about healers as People who make you feel better. You're in pain, discomfort, you're not happy, but a healer is somebody that makes you feel better, right? That ain't what she did. I know what she was doing. You know what she was doing? She was helping us to confront our fear. That's what she saw, was the necessity. And you know what? It is very much the necessity right now. And you got to look at the chapter, which I'm going to move to, on black fear. Okay? Which is getting us to confront that fear. So then you can neutralize it if you can confront it and understand it so that we could get to the next step. What's the next step? You confront the fear. Why did we need to confront fear? Why do we need to confront our fear of this whole thing? What do you do after that? Action? What kind? Exactly. What kind? What's the action? There is a very specific action that she did all the time and that she told us we had to do. It's even in the title of one of her things. What's the action? What's the action, y'all? Interesting that I'm not getting a lot of answers on this because that's part of the problem. We cannot move to the level of the action. You know what the action is? What's the action?
Fight.
Fight. Good. Fight. Yes, fight. What's a word that she uses over and over again? Hint. Starts with a C. Anybody? Starts with a C.
Confrontation.
Thank you, Jay.
I didn't want to say it, but
I know.
okay. Yeah.
Confrontation, y'all. Okay, we've confronted our fear. We gotta then confront what?
The enemy.
The enemy. Come on. Confront the system, racism, white supremacy. Let's put it like that. We gotta confront it. You gotta confront it. Let me skip where I wasn't going yet, okay? Because it flows here. What do you think is going to happen when you confront it? Can you name anybody else who has confronted racism, white supremacy? Anybody? Not anybody, but who said Malcolm X? Excellent answer. Good answer. Who? Good answer. Let's stop right there. We could name more. Okay. Now no, better answer would be Malcolm. Better answer is Medgar Evers. What about Martin Luther King? I wouldn't include him as confronting the system of white supremacy. Not that I don't like a lot of what he wrote, James Baldwin. I don't see him as confronting the system of white supremacy. These other people they confronted, what happened to them? They were killed. Dr. Welsing is saying we got to be prepared for that. That's one of the scariest, hardest things for us to hear, but she is talking turkey, y'all. She's not playing. She's talking for real. That you got to deal mentally, emotionally with the possibility, the strong possibility, right? That if you confront that system, that you may die. But let me ask you this. When you're at war and you go into battle, now I haven't been in the military. Any brothers here been in the military? I don't think so, because you all are too young, most of you. I know one who has been. If they go into battle, right? What might happen to them? It could be killed. Okay?
Captured.
That is what she's talking about, is mentally, emotionally, psychologically. You have to be prepared to be, she has one chapter where she says, every man, every black man needs to be raised to be a warrior soldier. Now, she's not doing rhetoric. She don't do that. She does for real. So that what gets in the way of that is black fear. Black fear on the part of the men, of the children, on the part of the mothers and the women who want to protect their sons. That's a natural thing, right?
Yes.
But guess what? We're not living in a natural environment. We're not living in a natural environment. We're not living in good times. We're not living as it was in Africa. You understand? And so our recognition has got to be, we are being warred against. If we want to be at war, then it's going to take all of this stuff. So, mental health is defined by her. In counter-racist psychiatry, patterns of logic, thought, speech, action, emotional response, and perception consciously produced by the victims of white supremacy racism with the objective of eradicating racism. That's mental health for her. She's got more too. Let's go to the next one. I'll see what I have here. But mental illness, submission to and cooperation with victimization and oppression are signs of individual or group mental illness or self-negation. That's mental illness for her. So, if you are really thinking from an African-centered perspective and you are truly a warrior and you truly understand what our situation is, that is what time it is, then you don't just take a discipline as it is taught to you, coming out of eugenics and all of this stuff, coming out of the system of white supremacy. You have to redefine what that is. And so a lot of the work, and you look into and listen to Nana John Henry Clarke, a lot of what he was saying, he's doing that. He's getting us to think with our own brains, in our own interest. And he's redefining the terms which will allow us to, reshape the playing field. We got to reshape that, y'all. Okay? We got to make it so we are an enemy for them. An active one. Okay? A threat beyond the fact of our genetics. You see what I'm saying? And that's what she's talking about as well. And I'll skip ahead to when she does talk about black fear. Because she says that it's pervasive, black fear is pervasive, and that it is getting in the way of our thinking, and that we are not thinking strategically. And it allows us to complain, which I would say protest. It allows us, what word does she use? Not whine, but to do all of that. Because we know we're hurting. We know the system isn't good for black people. And so we say that, and we may even organize some things about it. But it is not, the fear is getting in the way of us thinking towards problem solving, she says, towards developing a strategy. And that's what I say, is that it has, Garvey used this word, de-visioned us. I think the academy does that it takes the vision out of it. And so now the leadership that we have, so-called, because we don't have bona fide leaders, does not have vision. And I say that anybody, me, gets up in front of you and talks, or anybody who says that they're, 9 o'clock says, professes to be a leader of any kind, you ask them, what's your vision? What is your vision for African people? What is victory? What does a victory look like? And I'm not saying to challenge what they say necessarily, but even if they have an answer, then at least you can work with that. You might say, oh, good. Then how are we going to make that happen? Okay? But if they don't have that answer, you can't be a leader and you don't have a vision of something beyond white power. And the fear has gotten in the way of us doing that. And there's one place where I might have the quote up there, but what, we talk about black liberation, but if we really want black liberation, the reason has to be because we have confidence in who we are. We got a problem with self-confidence. We have a problem with self-respect. She sees these as results of racism, white supremacy. We got to work on that. And we're not going to be able to do that as long as we don't recognize that as the enemy and prepare ourselves to neutralize it. Got it? So what a healer would do in that context is prepare us to neutralize it. You know what it means to neutralize an enemy, y'all? Let's go on. Next. She talks about decoding the system. Decoding white culture. Decoding the white supremacy system. I have given myself the culture in which I find myself, wait, okay, I did something wrong here. And I don't know what it is, but she talks about the culture in which she finds herself in time and space. Okay? So let's just start with that. That culture is the dominating global power system and culture of white supremacy, racism. This decoding, she probably said she has given herself the task of decoding the culture that she finds herself in, right? This decoding amounts to examining the intricate pattern pieces underlying the culture and power system. Only by doing so, or by so doing, is it possible to see where we are going in the existing dense white fog. By the way, she would do that a lot. I like the way she talked, the way she would think. But that's what we're in right now. We're in a white fog. And it impacts on the way we think about how to organize, what we should be organizing about, what our objective is. We have no black agenda. I'm going to repeat that. We have no black agenda. An agenda is something, tells you what to do. And we know what we mean when we say that politically, right? But we don't have that. Don't you think it's time that we did? Garvey had one. And he was doing his organizing in, the 1920s and earlier? I mean, come on, y'all. What happened? Next. The oppression of black people means that there is no black self-determination. I'm going to repeat that again. We talk about self-determination. We might mean, okay, let's use our own language. Let's, what do we say? Wear African clothes or do something. Even our schools, we might want a black school. All of that, that's nice. That's good. But she's saying there can't be real self-determination. Black self-determination in what? As long as you are still in what? The system of white supremacy. You can't have black self-determination. It also means that there can be no true and functional black self-respect. Again, you can't have real black self-respect. We can't have self-respect. We can't have respect in ourselves as a group, as a race, as long as we're in the system. of white supremacy. So the words that we have are not enough, y'all. It's not even enough for us to have pictures on the wall in our homes that are black. It's good. It's better than having white pictures. But we need to think beyond that. We need to get serious. Why? Because we want to be at war. We are now being warred against. Because there is an enemy that is trying to kill us. And they're doing it. And they're doing it through all kinds of means, including the vaccines and the sterilization, but everything other kind of way, the menticide, all of it, right? And they are killing our children on the street, the police, and she has a chapter which you need to read called Justifiable Homicide, and explains exactly what's happening now. There was a hand up. Yeah, Haru.
That quote reminds me of how you said she was using physics.
Yes.
Like two
Good.
things can occupy the same space at the same time.
Good. I like that.
And without a system of our own, we can't have self-determination or self-respect.
Good.
Because we're still within a system that does not allow us to be self-determined.
Excellent thinking. Excellent point. Is that she talks about energy systems, and she's talking about white supremacy as a system, as an energy system. So with us in that system, we can only function according to the laws of that system. And if it's white supremacy system, then that means the negation of blackness. That's an excellent point. Let's see. Low levels of functional self-respect imply that the self-image and self-concept are more negative than positive. When something is, again, with the energy stuff and the physics, if it's more negative than positive, that it means it can't impact. You got that? Impact. What does that sound like to you? To impact something is to have what? Is to have? Come on. A word. If you can impact something, you got to have what? Power, y'all. This whole thing is about power. She's talking about power. We have difficulty thinking in terms of power. I think it comes back to the black fear thing. Okay? Very important. Everything has got to be about power. Again, everything is about power. Everything is political, y'all. Everything is political. Political is about power relationships. We have to think like that. She was trying to get us into another kind of thought way, so to speak. And I'm not feeling it. I got a few people, and some young people, I only work with young people, by the way, who, you know, they're there, right? But for most part, we ain't thinking in terms of power. And I think that that only comes from fear. I also think that that comes from these, I call them, I'm going off here now, this is important, because it relates. I call them comfort zones. We actually have become, how many people are familiar with the term ma'afa? Okay, that's almost everybody, but that's really the destruction of us, right? Okay, that started, well, way back in the day. So we could start with the Arabs and stuff, but them coming over and attacking us and just coming into Africa and stealing us and all of that, and then everything that has happened since, that's ma'afa. Got it? Okay. Something which is destroying you, killing those you love in all these different ways. How can you be comfortable in that? Now, you know what? That's a form of insanity. And that's where we're at, y'all. And what happens is you have these different pockets or comfort zones within that. So guess what? We go to school. You go way up there and you get these degrees. And you know what? That gives you a certain kind of comfort. But what you're really doing, you're still in that thing. Okay? You might go to church. You get some comfort. And that kind of keeps you from, I don't have to confront because I got my comfort thing right here. You go into an African spiritual tradition and you do what they tell you to do. You do your rituals. You make your sacrifices. You're kind of comfortable. We have to, you might go into the military under their control, obviously, right? But it becomes a comfort zone because you don't have to push yourself to fight. You don't have to push yourself to take on or confront the system of white supremacy. You got it? So when we think that somehow we can be here and be comfortable, that is mental illness. Let me go on. Or have some degree of self-determination or self-whatever and so forth.
Integration.
That's, hey, what does that do? What does that do? And let me do a little fighting here or whatever it's going to be. And that's okay because it's good, but that's my role. That's what I do. So what does it do when you get an integrated president who is seen as black? No, I'm asking, what does it do? What does it do? Does it makes you feel you're a part of it and that, yeah, this thing can work. Okay? So it becomes a danger in that sense. You see what I'm saying? So you got to look at, okay, what are the things that make us feel more comfortable here? And identify ourselves as American. Watch that. They imply that the self-image is more negative than positive. To have a negative impact on the total environment is a manifestation of behavioral powerlessness. You got that? So we're really powerless because we got negative impact. We can't do anything, really. You're not changing the system, right? You with me? You're not with me?
That's because you don't understand
Okay.
that the system is the problem.
We've been shaped and molded by that total environment into a functional inferior. A functional inferior. And what you have to do, we won't have time today, is to go and look at the book and see where she talks about the process of inferiorization. Okay? And what it means to be functionally inferior. And that's what this system does to us, to our children. To our children. She has a whole chapter on that, the process of that. Okay. Okay, neutralizing the impact of white supremacy. Again, remember that word, neutralizing. Every black person in the healing profession should master an understanding of the etiologic, that's the causal. Okay, just what causes, that's what we're looking at. Okay? Chain that leads to black inferiorization. Every healer that is black should want to understand what is that process, how does it work, where does it come from? Okay? And pass on this knowledge to their black patients, enabling them to neutralize the impact of white supremacy on their lives and achieve a development of their black genetic potential. She believes in our black genetic potential. Do we? Do we believe in that? You see? That has to be the reality. It has to be more than a potential. We have to manifest it. And the way you do that is by confronting the system. And by the way, which I have not said, but the only way we can do that is to organize to do that. Okay, it might sound here like you're talking a lot about you personally doing that. Okay, confronting and preparing yourself to confront. We're going to have what? What is the organization that confronts the enemy? What do you call that? The army. And I'm saying every African person to be born African has to understand that they were born into an army. Every African person, every black person should see themselves as part of an army. That's a whole different way of thinking. And so when we raise our children, the first thing that we say to them should be that they have to see themselves as part of this army. Where are we at? Enabling them to neutralize the impact of white supremacy on their lives and achieve a development of their black genetic potential and constitutional potential. What does she say? What's her estimation of that potential? Anybody reading? She says, second to none. Second to none. Your genetic potential is, and your constitutional potential is second to none. Let's go to the next one. Dr. Welsing argues that our brains have been short-circuited. This is, I won't go do a whole thing on black fear, which I was going to do. This will be enough right here. She talks about the brain computer, and she talks about the circuit. And she's saying that ours have been short-circuited. By what? Fear. This is what I believe. I also believe that we are in a state of collective depression, which keeps us from being visionary. It keeps us from seeing beyond them. But you all got to be able to do what we have to be able to do as a race, as a people, as warriors in training. We have to be able to envision a world without white people.
Who's going to lead us?
What'd you say?
Who's going to lead us? Who's going to lead us?
Ah, good, very good, because that she raises that. She raises that exactly. It's like we look to them for everything. She talks about dependency. I don't know if it's in there, but she talks about that. That's exactly right, whoever said that. And the reason we have to be able to envision that world is because what in the world are we fighting for? You see, it's been so long since we even, in fact, I just heard a lecture of Nana Clark where he says we've been out of power for so long that we've forgotten what power is. And so that's what we have to, relearn. But, we fight in this system, it's a bad system, all of that. What is our system going to look like? Okay? And then once we have that gives you, to me, it gives me the vision for what I'm working for. I got to get this thing out of the way so that then I can build what's supposed to be. We're the people of Ma'at, y'all. It's our job to bring harmony to the universe. And harmony doesn't mean that we got to live with white people. No. They won't even be an issue. Okay? But that's a whole nother. So, therefore, you've got to have a vision beyond this thing. And then know what Aikwe Arma said we got to do, which is to destroy the destroyers. And you're destroying the destroyers so that you can get to the creative purpose of our, I think, Dr. McIntosh, our existence, or whatever it is that he says, right?
The way.
We getting back to the way. That's the reason we got to do all of this stuff, right? Which is the way to live properly. Okay, so we've been short-circuited by fear. We reject the conscious recognition of white supremacy. We don't want to know that it's there, that it exists. So what do? We let the racists define racism. We do that. So sometimes they even define Pan-Africanism as racism. Check that out. They'll do all of that because you can do anything with words. And we just go for it. Or we spend all this time arguing against them. What? Come on. You're going to let your enemy engage you in this? They do that to you.
College all the time.
Yeah, Dr. Kanye's here. You know, when you're in these white universities, that's what they do. That's their job. Okay, but we can't use all our energy there, fighting them. There is a disturbance in problem perception, she's saying, because of black fear. There is no commitment by blacks to analyze the problem of white supremacy comprehensively. Remember, that's how we started out. We need an overall analysis or something that will give us a systematic analysis. Blacks are without a perception or analysis of racism or of a scientific counter-racism. Next one, I'm going to have to move fast. We are witnessing a collective black floundering, that should be L there, and an ideological vacuum and disorientation. They keep us off like this, okay? Blacks can pretend as a diversionary thought strategy that the real struggle exists between imagined classes. Who is that? That's a Marxist. That's what they're going to tell you. So then all this thing is on the classes, which he said doesn't even exist in white people because classes, among black people, because classes are about power. They are power relationships, and we ain't got no power in the system, so we don't have no classes. Okay, I love it, right? Or between black males and females. How much time do we spend doing that? And then you get the whole, what I call death style people in terms of saying homosexuality. That's putting the males against the females, and that ain't making for the children. How you gonna have the children? You see what I'm saying? All of these things are diversionary. Okay? And we're taking them on like, this should be our ideology? Come on. The root of black fear, the total black collectives in the U.S. has yet to confront consciously the mind-blowing logic and thought-distorting shock and fear that set in following the assassinations of practically all courageous black male leaders. Next one. Since all of these deliberate deaths have occurred, there has been a profound disinclination, means people don't want to do this, by surviving blacks to confront the awesome and murderous reality of white supremacy directly. The struggle for justice and true black power is perceived through a glass darkly, like how she does stuff, and not face to face because there is overwhelming fear. We have to face the fear. I think this next quote, do the next one, James. I think this is the one. No, that's not the one.
Next one.
There is never a consistent motion toward, yeah, let's do the next one. Yeah, listen to this. Listen to, she was funny too, you know. In keeping with this goal, that is of overcoming black fear, I recommend to the black collective that we need not have any conferences. Let me repeat that. We need not have any conferences other than to announce the existence of our fear of white supremacy and to share with one another all possible solutions for overcoming these fears. Got it? Okay.
That deserves an applause.
Let's stop with this one.
That's it?
Yeah, I want to go to the other one.
Oh, okay.
Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to end with, I'm going to go quickly through a PowerPoint that I've done because I want us to end with, where is it going? Where do I say it's going? Where was she talking about going? And connect her with this African sovereignty movement that I am announcing and part of and so forth. I see her as the brain of black power. And I think that we need to think in terms of power. And that we don't do that enough, that we don't understand it, and we don't talk about it, okay? She did. I call her Cool Fire. Anybody who knew her. Next one. The fundamental power concern in the white supremacy system culture is white genetic survival through white supremacy domination. We have heard that. We know that. By now, you should know that by heart. I'm saying that this is, and she does have this somewhere, we need to know what the real game is. And the real game is the power game. Next one. The theory helps us to understand that in the white supremacy system, all areas of people activity are used for the achievement of power. All areas of people activity, and some people could just say them all out, I think it's 9 of them, are used for their achievement of power.
You want me to say them?
That's what we didn't know. That's okay.
Okay. Okay.
Maybe after. Race, power, he's saying them over there.
Okay.
Well, say them. Say it.
Economics, education,
entertainment.
Law, labor and politics, war, religion, and sex.
Wow. I mean,
And health in there.
they're good. Okay. You want to hear it again?
Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, religion, politics, sex, and war.
There you go.
Okay, and then Heru adds health, but she did 9, and Neely Fuller
Does 9.
does 9. Okay. Race power, race power, race power. Another word that we don't use is race. Another concept we don't use is race, but it used to be used. We will use it. It is the reality that shapes our lives. And all war with this system is about race, y'all. Do not be afraid of race. Now you're going to let the racists say in academia that there's no such thing as race. Why do you think they're saying that? They're saying it, they say, because, oh, that was so bad, that scientific racism, and we need to get away from that, so now we know there's no such thing as race. Huh? Why do you think they're saying it? Why? Because that's the most powerful thing that we have, is our racial identification.
Playing a race card.
Thank you. All right, all right. We need to use race, y'all. They come out inferior with that one, right? We come out superior with that. Did I read that one already? Yeah. Oh, no. Race power is the... We must learn to play the real game. The power game. What is it called? War. War. Really be at war, okay? Next one. The white collective understands black power. They understand it. Black genetic superiority, melanin-dominant people are the overwhelming majority of the world's people. White powerlessness. I'm finishing right now. White genetic inferiority, inadequacy, only 8% of the world suffer from this affliction. It's an affliction. It's a disease. Next. Yurugu. Recognizes that their genetic inadequacy implies their death. That's what it implies. They're going to die. Their non-humanness, you got you got that play on that, right? Places them outside of the human family. This understanding, this knowledge produces intense fear of genetic annihilation and a constant state of insecurity and anxiety. Homelessness, they're not at home anywhere. Disharmony. Remember about Yurugu. Yurugu it's in the nature of Yurugu to destroy, right? That's all it knew, right? Next. The response on the part of the white collective is to create a system in which they substitute racial domination for genetic power. Racial domination for genetic power, okay? A system in which they become superior and which is focused on destroying black power, thereby guaranteeing their own survival, since black power is the greatest threat to white survival. Next one. We got to understand the root cause of racism. Our lack of understanding of the fundamental basis of the system of white supremacy causes us to accept the position of inferiority that it imposes. Believing in their superiority necessarily makes us functionally inferior. This devastating belief creates black fear. The white collective has, through the defensive construct of white supremacy, successfully transferred their fear to us. Next one. If we do not, this is her quote I love. If we do not have confidence in our ability to make independent black observations, black analyses, and black plans for black action, why should we talk about or seek black liberation? Got that one? For us to, okay, now, what I'm doing is connecting her with Marcus Mosiah Garvey and looking at what he did. You talk about a psychotherapist or a psychologist or whatever they call them. Garvey was supreme. And read a book, I call it the Green Book, by Amos. Came out after Black Power, after Blueprint.
Garveyism and the New African World Order.
That one. African-centered consciousness in the New World Order. Garveyism in the age of globalism. Get that. Get that book, okay? For us to examine ourselves as a people, we will find more traitors than leaders, because nearly everyone who tries to lead the race at this time does so by first establishing himself as the pet of some philanthropist. Who was he talking about? Okay. Of another race, to whom he will go and debase his race in the worst form, humiliate his manhood, and thereby win the sympathy of the great benefactor, who will dictate to him what he should do in leadership of the Negro race. These leaders tell us how good Mr. So-and-so is, how many good friends we have in the opposite race, and that if we leave everything to them, all will work out well. This is Marcus Garvey writing in 1925, and I'm saying that he is a symbol of fearless Black manhood. Next one. Marcus Mosiah Garvey, antidote to Black fear. Black fear must be displaced with Black self-love. He didn't say this, he did say this. Black self-confidence and Black self-respect. That's what Garvey called for. When we are dominated by the system of white supremacy and believe in our own inferiority, not only do we fear white power, but that fear turns into fear of Black power. And if we had more time, we'd talk about that. But it has to do with the fact that when you are in power, then you have responsibility and you are accountable. And a big responsibility. And Donna Clark asks the question, she said, ask every leader, every teacher, every policy maker, how will my people stay on this earth? And he goes through a whole list of them. How will they be educated? How will they be defended? How will they be fed? These are the questions that should be asked of the people who are putting themselves as a leader. That's responsibility, y'all. Okay, next. Garvey was the most successful leader of the Black masses that we have had before or since. He healed Black people with race pride and a race-first ideology. He said that we must be a sovereign people and love ourselves. Black leadership made up of those who believed in Black inferiority and white superiority were so threatened by Garvey's call for Black independence that they band together and went to the white boy to get rid of him. Now that happened. And that's one of the things that keep going. Next, yeah. The African Black male is the vehicle of Black genetic power. He is therefore perceived as the greatest threat to white genetic survival. He must be pacified and weakened. He must be separated from the African Black female through whom the Black race is regenerated. In essence, the Black male must be degendered, rendered ineffective and powerless as a male. This is what Welsing is saying. Next one. Black male bisexuality and homosexuality has been used by the white collective in its effort to survive genetically. Got that? In their effort to survive, okay, they are promoting that. And we can see it. In the time when she was writing this, it wasn't even like it is now. She was telling us that this would happen. To survive genetically in a world dominated by colored people, and Black acceptance of this imposition does not solve the major problem of our oppression, but only further retards its ultimate solution. Next one. Since whites are alienated from their genetic status, they defensively cause non-whites to be alienated from their genetic status as well. That's what they're doing through that promotion of those death styles, okay? This should put the victims of such a dynamic, Black people, on the alert so that they efficiently and effectively can counter this destructive assault against the appreciation of their own total genetic status. Next one. Okay, so she's saying, talking about the threat of Black genetic annihilation and that our children should be protected, and what Black psychiatrists, their posture towards homosexuality should be. She said, our task is to treat and prevent its continuing and increasing occurrence. Next one. Black males must collectively face the horrendous presence of white males and conquer the accompanying fear engendered by this act. After the white male is faced, he must be resisted steadfastly and fought. If he continues to wage war on black people, which it looks like he will do, he has done historically. Next one. Black women must learn to rear sons who will learn from the cradle that their major function as men is not to get a good job and a fine car, but to defend, protect, and support their people in that order, even should death be the consequence. Understand that she is talking about being in a state of war. So she's not talking about everything is everything, which we tend to look at. Oh, we want our children to be happy. We want them to have all these privileges and so forth. May be very natural, but not in this state, y'all. Okay, next one. Okay, we're going to skip. I wish we didn't have to. She has a chapter called The Neurochemical Basis for Evil. You need to look at that chapter, okay? And what she's countering with that is melanin, which she says is the neurochemical basis for soul. She said that she posited this, she presented this to the National Medical Association. James, Dr. McIntosh, I want you to just, later you can say, she gave this paper to the NMA. Now that's the Black Association of Doctors, of medical people. And you think they're revolutionary? So her presenting this paper to them in 1972, they must have been like, oh my God, okay? Melanin, the neurochemical basis for soul. I posited melanin as a possible neurotransmitter and the skin melanocytes as the foundation of the sixth sense, the basis for knowledge of the unseen, including a deeper knowledge of what is bad. Just keep going. And then, I'm not going to go through all this, but this is something that I have used extensively. There's a book by Leonard Barrett called Soul Force. It's out of print, but if you can get it, go online, you might be able to get it. But he talks about soul and soul force and talks about this special quality that black people have that has enabled us to do what we have done. And I'm saying we need to use that same thing, that soul force, to go ahead and forge this movement of the African sovereignty movement and to confront the system of white supremacy and to be at war, that we need to use it to fight with. Let's go ahead, James. Is that the next one?
Yeah.
Soul Force describes the racial inheritance of the New World African. The symbol of power that emerged in the consciousness of Africans in the diaspora is blackness. Life force or life power is the most important concept found in all Africa. The supreme value of life is to live robustly, strongly. Anything that diminishes this life force is considered dangerous. Now, I put that there, and I use this to say that's how we need to see the system of white supremacy. You understand? That it seeks to diminish our life force because white people are threatened by our life force because they think that implies their genetic annihilation. You see how it works, y'all? I'm trying to give you the logic of all of this. Is this the next one? Next one. Now, let's see, melanin, Baba Kobe Cambone. In a book, I think this is in African Personality in America, talks about melanin. Melanin dominance constitutes a primary aspect of the biogenetic basis of the African personality system. So he links melanin to the African personality. And I won't go into more of that here, but I'm trying to show you kind of the support and the reasoning for her bringing melanin into this discussion. You see, which before that you didn't hear that kind of thing. And it's still considered. I'm still getting people saying, oh, I don't believe in that melanin, whatever. Okay? But it's clearly something that we need to be looking into. Okay? And there's a book, The Science of Melanin by Tim Moore. The Science of Melanin. Very, very accessible, easy to read, and so forth. But he's a neuropsychologist, I think that's the term. So he deals with the brain. Let's go ahead. And this is Cambone again, who talks about something called African self-extension orientation, which is really spirituality, and he's connecting spirituality with melanin. So now let's keep going and look at what Dr. Welsing says. There's the book, 10 more, keep going. Okay, now she talks about evil. Evil as the antithesis of soul. So you see these two things she's countering here. Evil and soul. And she defines evil as being that which is against life. Again, that which is against life. What culture is that? It's clearly white Western culture, you see, as the antithesis of soul. I relate soul, that's the other thing, us, to order, spirituality, and the affirmation of life. You see what she does here, okay? I equate evil with chaos, destruction, especially the destruction of life. That's Yorugu. Next one. The absence of melanin obstructs the nervous system's ability to tune into the total spectrum of the frequencies of the universe. I'm going to skip down. She says it then becomes incumbent, it means you got to do it, upon those possessing melanin to counteract evil. That's what we have to do, because we are these special people on earth and in the world. African people, the original people. Ain't nobody can really argue with that one, okay? To address this obsession with mass death, they are obsessed with mass death and the degradation of human life. That is the nature of white Western culture, okay? In the hopes of countering it is to affirm the dignity of human beings and the universe. So she's saying that's our job, and that's how we affirm that dignity. Next one. Now I want to show you quickly, I was explaining the term ma'afa, but I want to add to that the way people ordinarily know it. What I found out later was that I was looking for a term in an African language. So I got Kiswahili because of the people working with me in the Department of African Studies at Hunter. They taught Kiswahili, okay, Black and Puerto Rican Studies at Hunter. And that's what I got. I said a term for great disaster. That's what I wanted, and so I introduced that. However, I was to find out later, the sister from, where's she from? From Senegal, I think, Kumba, said, how did you know to use this term ma'afa? I said, I don't know what you mean. I mean, I used it because I needed something, and, you know. She said, but in my language, Bamana, it is, ma'a is the divinity of human beingness. Human beingness, hue, color. Fa is to kill. So ma'afa is to kill or destroy humanity. I was like blown away, but that's the ancestors working, y'all, okay? So let's go on. Now, let me just say that the reason I put that up there was because remember what Dr. Welsing was just talking about when we you know, interrupted that. She was talking about evil. She was talking about evil as being against life, right? And she was talking about our responsibility in terms of fighting evil. You got that? White supremacy is the greatest known evil on earth. This is a quote from Nana Welsing. To ignore evil is to participate in evil. Look at page 234. Look at it. Again, to ignore evil is to participate in evil. To the extent that we do not fight it, we are participating in it. You got that? Ma'afa?
Yeah,
Go
You
back.
want to say it again? Sure.
Yeah, that's dope.
There it is. Ma'a, the divinity of human beingness. Fa, to kill. Ma'afa, to kill, destroy humanity. That's in the Bamana language. Okay? Next one. And it is incumbent upon those possessing melanin to counteract evil. She's telling us that is our job to do. That's what we have to do. That's what we're put here to do. That is our work. We're not doing that. We are failing, and we're participating in the evil and the system of white supremacy. Okay? And it's not enough just to protest. What do we have to do? Does anybody, what do you learn from this? What do we have to do with regard to the system of white supremacy?
Impact. We got to develop our own systems. What are the systems of African survival?
Who said confront? Thank you. And then, and how do we confront it? What do you call it when you confront an enemy? War. Why are we afraid to say that? That's what she's talking about. We need to be at war. We are being warred against. That's how we confront it. Okay? So we should be organizing ourselves for war. We should be organizing ourselves for war. We should be organizing ourselves for war. So you're not taping anymore? Oh. Next one. The global, okay, now I'm getting into African sovereignty. A lot of people say, well, what do you mean by sovereignty? Well, I'm going to let you know what I mean by it, and that's the way we got to go. The global white collective is inherently evil. Its evilness is the result of its powerlessness. Again, its evilness is the result of its powerlessness, okay? So it's this compensatory thing for the powerlessness, right? Its extreme minority status, lack of melanin, and so forth. Black power and spirituality. It lacks all that. It lacks that, y'all. The white supremacy system, which is a defense mechanism, right, necessary for white genetic survival, creates the illusion of white power over black. Creates the illusion of white power over black. But it is consummate evil. That means the epitome of evil. Essentially evil. That's what white supremacy system is. Racism, white supremacy is consummate evil. The epitome of evil. I want you to feel that. I want you to think like that. So you know it's your job to fight against the evil. Now, with all of this, we haven't talked about the fact that you can't do it alone. We've got to organize to do this. Okay? Garvey was an organizer. He organized people into the UNIA, which is meeting right now, which I was wondering why they weren't here. Okay? Where are we at? We read this already, didn't we? Okay. Oh, I know what I wanted to say. African sovereignty is the organization of that army, okay, which is seeking absolute power. That's what we want. We don't want a piece of this and a little of that and, you know, question the police on that one and, you know, a few more jobs here and that kind of thing. That's not what we want. I don't even use the word empowerment because that assumes a system within which you are empowered. I'm talking about power, you all. And I'm not going to use any words that keep me from saying power. Talk power. Not empowerment, but power. Got it? Raw power is what we need. Did I read that already? I read all of that. Okay. Now, here's talking about African sovereignty. So you want to know what it is? This is what it is. It's the consolidation of black power. The consolidation of black power. The consolidation of black power. Where? 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 Everywhere. Black power everywhere, throughout the world. Thank you. That means you're thinking it and feeling it, okay? And that's what I have to do, is get this in your heart. Because all of this has got to come from the hearts of black people. Is that clear? And then our minds have got to be thinking with our hearts, okay? The consolidation of black power, it is African black self-love. Listen to this now. Because wasn't Welsing talking about that? Wasn't Garvey talking about that? Self-definition. We define ourselves. Self-respect, self-determination, and self-rule. Self-rule. The concept and term of rule is very important. Rule. To rule. Okay? That's what sovereignty is about. To be sovereign, to reign. African sovereignty is the only construct capable of destroying evil. I'm going to repeat that. African sovereignty is the only construct capable of destroying evil. Now, Dr. Welsing has told us that this is what we've got to do. Didn't she tell us that? What did she say was the most evil thing on the face of the earth? Were you watching? Were you listening? Well, are you still remembering? Because you got to remember from one moment to the next. Loud. Don't be afraid to say it. White supremacy. The greatest evil on the face of the earth. I'm saying here, this is how we organize to destroy it. Destroying the destroyers. The greatest evil, the system of white supremacy. In African sovereignty, not only, now listen to this, does black power triumph over white power. That's one thing. Black power triumph over white power. But white power, which is the system of white supremacy, no longer exists. Let me say that again. If black power triumphs over white power, then the system of white supremacy no longer exists. Is that clear? Because the system of white supremacy is based on the reverse, which is white power over black. Is that clear to people? Yes. Okay. And the perpetrators, the doers of evil, they no longer exist. Remember what their fear is? Why are they afraid of us? Genetic annihilation. And we represent that to them. Okay? So, in a system which is based on black power and the triumph of black power over white power, they no longer exist. That's what they're afraid of. It doesn't allow for their continued existence. It allows for their genetic annihilation. You see, we're talking serious war. That's why they have to fight, because they understand the threat to their existence. We do not understand the threat of white supremacy and racism to our existence, y'all. We think we can still live. We think we can still live and get by with just some discomfort and occasional occurrences of quote-unquote discrimination. It ain't perfect, but it doesn't mean our death. That's what we think. And I'm saying something very different. Dr. Welsing is saying something very different. Marcus Garvey was saying something very different, because he was saying, unless we have our own government, we will not survive. We are in danger of being exterminated. He said that in 1920s. I don't know where I'm at, but I'm just going to keep going. The perpetuators of evil will no longer exist, since their continued survival depends on what? What does their continued survival depend on? White supremacy. That's what the system is set up for. That's what Neely Fuller said. That's what Frances said, was that the system was so that they could survive. So if you do away with the system, got it?
Garden generation.
Got it? Next one. So she is saying that black manhood, listen y'all, means warrior or soldier. Warrior or soldier. Warrior or soldier, not PhD, not CEO. That's what she said. Warrior or soldier against white supremacy. Embracing everything that the words warrior or soldier imply. Now that's plain, and if it isn't, it might be black fear getting in the way of it being plain, because it seemed real plain to me. Okay? And then Marcus Garvey, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey said what? Up, you mighty race. Come on. You can accomplish what you will. Will being the important word there. The will. The will is the power. It's that thing that makes things happen to have an impact on the world. We can do whatever it is that we will. This is what this man said. He said that we were a mighty race. Don't give up the concept of race. You understand, this mighty warrior woman, I see her as an African sovereignist, but she is my hero. Medasi for sitting here and being so patient.